Today, very harsh words coming in for the BCCI from the Supreme Court today. The apex court has slammed the cricketing body, saying it is killing the game, questioning Srinivasan's role as president and team owner as well. Scathing observations coming in from the Supreme Court. Will the order be as scathing itself? Well, that will depend on the evidence on hand. But right now, the Supreme Court taking an extremely dim view of the functioning of the BCCI and has questioned Mr. Srinivasan on the conflict of interest. I would like to cut across immediate time to former IPL Commissioner, Mr. Lalit Modi. He is joining us on the phone line live. Mr. Modi, some form of vindication today with the kind of observations being given out by the Supreme Court?
I'd say it's an important ruling that by the words by the court. It's not a ruling, I would say. It's an important direction given by the court. And the observation given by the court. Their mind is, I think, made up. And it's about time that the court implemented it, because the BCCI is incapable of implementing it themselves. It will have to be a directive by the Honorable Supreme Court to do away with this malice in the game.
Mr. Modi, some form of vindication, because you've been saying it all along that all's not quite well with the BCCI today. The Supreme Court coming up with these scathing observations there, questioning the very functioning of the BCCI.
Any cleanup is hard. Yes, it's a vindication in one stand, and of course the opposition is going to react very, very strongly as the BCCI have banded together. But yes, it is a form of vindication that everything is not right, and my battle with them will continue to clean up the game, and that's what I've been battling for so long. And fortunately, Aditya has been able to carry on the battle along with me to take this to the Supreme Court and get it to the stand where we are today.
Mr. Modi, especially when it comes down to the former president of the BCCI, Mr. Srinivasan, scathing observations made on his account too, especially when it comes down to conflict of interest. Something which was argued in court by the BCCI today.
I think the BCCI is trying to sweep everything under the carpet, trying to deflect in different directions. And I think the action of conflict of interest has become extremely, extremely important. And it's not only conflict of interest. It's the whole betting scenario. It's the whole people who are involved. I mean, the two teams unquestionably should be sacked. They shouldn't be given any time of response. You've seen that happen in the past with teams who haven't done anything as far as Deccan Chargers is concerned. You've seen in the past of Pune Warriors is concerned in the past. And now all of a sudden these teams who are involved, them owners are involved in betting, which is a complete no-no in our rules and regulations. Drafted by me in that point in time, very clearly say that if anybody is betting, then those teams will have breached the agreement of owning a franchise, and the franchise will be cancelled. And I see no reason that they shouldn't be. They should be with forfeit cancelled, and new teams should be auctioned off. There should be no discussion on this.
Mr. Modi, and that is, well, the BCCI argued on the point of view on that front that under the bylaws it's fine that even the president could own a team where the IPL is concerned. Of course, later on slammed by the Supreme Court on that account.
I agree. I think that rule needs to be modified and changed urgently. And if the BCCI doesn't do it, then the Supreme Court should direct it to do it. And the modification should be done away with, that they were done. You've seen that the BCCI votes in tandem with whatever the president wants and just rubber stamps everything. And everybody who is rubber stamping today should be disallowed from functioning as a cricket administrator going forward.
Do you reckon, Mr. Modi, at this point of time, the BCCI doesn't quite have much elbow room? Till now, it's pretty much been the cat with 9 lives, but with these scathing observations, which are not orders yet, orders will depend on the evidence at play. But in terms of observations, do you reckon that the BCCI is right now boxed in a corner?
I think that they've always tried to get out of the box. They think they're a body by themselves. They think they control the game of cricket individually and for themselves on one hand. On the other hand, they call themselves a private body. On thirdly, they say they are a group of private members doing this. If that be the case, I think the Supreme Court should very clearly open the pathway for us to launch multiple cricketing activities in the country, and shouldn't make BCCI the only responsible body. It should not be Team India. It should be Team BCCI. If that be the case going forward.
Right. Mr. Modi, I'd appreciate if you stay on with us. I'd like to quickly bring in a consulting editor, Boria Mazumdar, who's with us at this point of time. He wants to put forth a few questions. Go ahead, Boria.
Lalit, first things first, has there been any day in the history of Indian cricket where the Supreme Court of Lands made similar observations against the BCCI?
No, I think this is the first time, and it's about time they did so. And we've all been waiting impatiently, and the game is deteriorating by the day, by the hour, and we see more fixes taking place and more collusions taking place. And I think the Supreme Court has come down extremely heavy, and has rightfully done so.
Second question, for me, the standout observation of the court is that the report can say that Mr. Srinivasan or Mr. Srinivasan can infer that he's got a clean sheet. But as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, their inference of the report will be abiding on the BCCI, and they have not given Srinivasan a clean sheet. What do you make of that?
I completely agree with you. I think this is just, they take BCCI is in the habit of pulling out one portion and diverting it into another area, and trying to say that Mr. Srinivasan is not involved in fixing. Mr. Srinivasan involved in many things. Cover up is the biggest one of them. Running the administration in a collusive manner is another one of them. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And point is, Mr. Srinivasan has not been given a clean sheet by any standard by the Supreme Court, and by the members colluding together to say that shows that everybody has little understanding of the game, except for holding on to their seats, and has little understanding of what is good for the game and for the fans, apart from what's good for themselves. And that is the important issue right now that's on hand, and I think it's time that all of this is cleaned up once and for all.
Lalit, the BCCI is not an abstraction. It's actually made up of some of the most important names in this country. Do you think that there is any room left for the BCCI for maneuver, or now they are pushed in such a corner that they will have to take note of the Supreme Court's observations and act?
Boria, you and I have both been here for the last so many years, and we have both seen how the BCCI operates, and we have both seen that they have the best lawyers to try and circumvent and find ways to take this in a different direction. But yes, I think the maneuver is going to stop, because the elbow space given by the Supreme Court is going to be limited, and I think only directions by the Honorable Supreme Court will make them see light. And I think if the only savior to the game or any green light at the end of the tunnel is the Supreme Court. I don't see any justice coming out of the BCCI as it stands today, or as it is composed today.
What is important, Lalit, is that over the last 1.5 years, it was the media, it was the cricket fan, and the BCCI could turn around and say, we are a cozy club of 30, to hoots with what you say, to hell with what you say, we don't care. But this is the Supreme Court of the land, the highest judiciary above which there is no law, no power. So in this case, the BCCI has been wrapped in the gut. They've been disgraced and been shamed, and the fact that the Supreme Court says you are killing the game, there can't be truer words than that, isn't it?
I agree, and but you got to understand, we have shameless people sitting on the board, unfortunately, and they're so thick-skinned that they really don't care about anything else except lining their own pockets.
Lalit, you have worked with Sundar Raman in the past. Now, he's been one of the people who's been indicted by the Mudgal panel. The BCCI working committee coming up and saying Sundar Raman is scot-free, Sundar Raman is not guilty. How do you react to such sort of ways to completely turn a blind eye to this entire report? The BCCI's working committee says Srinivasan not guilty, Sundar Raman not guilty, CSK should not be punished. So are you actually trying to say that the Mudgal report is a farce?
What they're trying to say is, yes, we are a law by ourselves. We will do what we want. We really don't care about the Mudgal report, and we will continue to operate the way we want to, and we will interpret the report the way we want to, and that's what they're trying to say. Not realizing that the Supreme Court is the most powerful body in the world, in India, and they will take action. And I'm surprised that the so-called learned friends of mine and the BCCI have continued to do what they have, but at the end of the day, we have seen the court is going to come down heavy, and it has today. And it's really sad to see that we had to wait for the Supreme Court to teach them a lesson, and they wouldn't learn themselves.
What is interesting is that, and it's a complete change in stance, the BCCI's lawyers saying in court that they'll take the report at face value and as prima facie evidence. Now, if that is the case, then all of these people stand guilty. Now, if these people stand guilty, i.e. CSK, i.e. Sundar Raman, i.e. Gurunath, can Mr. Srinivasan sit in judgment as the president of his own son-in-law and his own team?
No, he can't. And what the lawyers say in court is basically to pacify the judges at that point in time. and at the end of the day, they have no power to implement because the implementation power lies with Mr. Srinivasan. And as long as he's at the helm, you will see what you've been seeing so long: cover up after cover up after cover up.
So do you now, so what, having been involved in Indian cricket administration, now sitting away, what is your take from this hearing today? Is there a chance for the game in India to be cleansed? Can the ordinary cricket fan, as the Supreme Court says, have any faith left? Can the BCCI be trusted to cleanse the game, or what is the way forward from here on?
You've asked multiple questions. I can answer them one by one. Yes, if the Supreme Court was to give a directive, we have a green light. We have some hope in the game. But if you ask whether the BCCI itself, currently the way it's composed, continue to administer the game fairly, no, it will not, because the people that are there right now are in collusion with the person concerned, and their hands are as dirty as the person who is actually fixing it, or are indulging in those corrupt activities. So they need to be taken out. Now, whether that can be done or not done in a short time, it's a difficult question to answer. Whether it will happen overnight, no, it will not, because resistance will take place. Anything new to happen, or any new order to take place and to cleanse out, the people who are used to doing things in a particular way, they will put all their power and might and their money behind it, and so there is, going to be a tug and war. Only way we can go forward is if the Supreme Court passes directions, and that's the only which way.
The hearing has been adjourned till tomorrow 2 p.m. But the takeaway from today's hearing, Lalit, is the Supreme Court is not definitely buying the BCCI's argument or the affidavits that everybody is clean and the game is hunky-dory. Now, as you said, we are now waiting for directions from the Supreme Court, and the petitioner's lawyer has actually gone and said that the first report, which said Srinivasan has indulged in cover-up, does stand. So the first and second report should be taken together. What is your take on this whole issue of cover-up? Because the Srinivasan camp was pretty clear that he's been given a clean sheet for betting and fixing, but betting and fixing directly was never the charge.
I agree with you. So I think what is happening is that there are multiple reports done. All reports should stand valid and should be valid because they have gone into detail. Multiple reports have come out for multiple things. What the BCCI and Mr. Srinivasan are doing are cherry-picking certain things. I think all are very valid points as far as the reports are concerned. I think the players' names need to be exposed. The players need to go.
What the Supreme Court has said is that they will not reveal names 2 and 3 or numbers 2 and 3, but might reveal their teams. Now, do you think if the teams are revealed, and if it happens to be the team of Mr. Srinivasan, will that put him further in a tight spot? Preeti, I think we've lost Lalit Modi there, but that is definitely a question that one needs to take into account. If the teams of players number 2 and 3 are revealed, what happens then? And if it happens to be one particular team, then does that put Mr. Srinivasan in a tighter spot?
And wouldn't that be open to...
hearing, as far as I'm concerned, is extremely damning for the board.
Well, you're right there, and wouldn't that be open to conjecture, especially where reports keep filtering in? We'll keep tracking the very latest. What we are getting right now emanating from the Supreme Court, the hearing has been scheduled for tomorrow. It will continue tomorrow. And I'd like to immediately cut across to my colleague Shivani, who was inside the Supreme Court. Shivani, can you take us through the latest? We believe that the hearing has been adjourned only to continue tomorrow 2 p.m. Give us the latest.
That's right. The hearing has been adjourned till 2 p.m. tomorrow, when the arguments will continue. It did not end on a very good note for the petitioners, because the special judges bench actually told Nandini Chidambaram, the lawyers for the petitioner, to come back with her homework. It seemed that the special bench was not very happy with some of the arguments or the cases that she was presenting.
All right, we seem to have lost Shivani once again. Once she's inside, let's get in the latest reactions.
मामला कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट पे आ गया, जिससे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट पे कोर्ट एक तरह से सेटिस्फाइड है कि एक आदमी जो भी हो, अगर वो किसी इंस्टीट्यूशन का प्रेसिडेंट हो, तो क्या उसका टीम अगर भाग ले रहा है उस इंस्टीट्यूशन के द्वारा कराए गए आईपीएल टूर्नामेंट में, तो ये कहाँ तक जायज है। इन्हीं सब चीजों पे बहस चल रहा था, और हमारे जो लॉयर का बहस का मेन जो आज का मुद्दा था कवर अप द करप्शन, और इस पे कोर्ट को आज हम लोगों ने सेटिस्फाइड करने की कोशिश करी है, और तमाम बातों को बीसीसीआई के पक्ष को, एन श्रीनिवासन साहब के पक्ष को सुनने के पश्चात कोर्ट टाइम हो जाने के लिए कल तक के लिए इसको एडजॉर्न किया है और कल 2 बजे से फिर इस मुकदमे की सुनवाई होगी।
आदित्य जी, एक अपील श्रीनिवासन ने फिर भी की थी कि उनको रीइंस्टेट कर देना चाहिए एज अ प्रेसिडेंट, उसके ऊपर कोर्ट का क्या ऑब्जर्वेशन, कोर्ट ने क्या कहा?
ये देखिए, अभी मुकदमा मुदगल कमीशन साहब की रिपोर्ट सबमिट हुई है, अभी रिपोर्ट का कॉपी भी नहीं सर्व हुआ है एक तरह से सारे पक्षों को। इस मुकदमे के बीच के दरमियान में अगर श्रीनिवासन साहब ये चाहते हैं कि वो बीसीसीआई में अध्यक्ष आ जाए तो एक तरह से तो ये पूरे मुकदमे का निष्पादन ही आप मान के चलिए। अगर बीसीसीआई में वो फिर से अध्यक्ष आते हैं तो सोचिए कि बीसीसीआई का ही ये केस ही खत्म हो गया, क्योंकि एक श्रीनिवासन साहब ही हैं जो अभी तक अपने कार्यशैली से अपने दामाद को, अपने खास लोगों को अभी तक बचाने का ही काम उन्होंने किया है और सुप्रीम कोर्ट इस चीज को अपने द्वारा बनाए गए कमीशन के जांच रिपोर्ट के तह में जा चुका है कि मिस्टर एन श्रीनिवासन का कोशिश रहा है कि वो शील्ड कर रहे हैं, वो जो दोषी हैं उन्हें बचा रहे हैं और इन्हीं सब बातों पे सुनवाई आज पुरजोर हुई है और ये सुनवाई कल तक के लिए मुतकिल की गई।
आपने अपील की, आपकी तरफ से अपील की, प्लेयर्स के नाम भी।
All right, there you heard it. Reactions coming in from the petitioner. I'd immediately like to hand it over back to our consulting editor, Boria Mazumdar, who has the former IPL commissioner, Lalit Modi, on the phone line. Over to you, Boria.
Lalit, basically from what I was hearing Aditya's thing, this whole thing seems to be about Srinivasan's reinstatement. You know, it's actually in the middle of the case. I mean, the petitioners have not been given a copy of the entire report, and there is an affidavit saying, I am in the clear, I need to be reinstated. What do you make of that?
I agree. I think the more important issue for the BCCI would have been to address the issues of the Mudgal Commission and to address the report on hand. But everybody's so worried about getting back in their seat, and that's all they're focused on. Shows exactly what the BCCI mindset is all about. And they're not interested in the report, they're not interested in cleaning up anything, they're only interested in going forward and moving in a direction where they will be able to rule the roost again.
What is fascinating for me and what came out of that emergent working committee meeting is that the BCCI in its affidavit says player number 3 was reprimanded. Now the Supreme Court has very clearly said that the players' names have not been revealed or will not be revealed. So is the BCCI privy to the report? Does the BCCI know what the report contains? Does it actually know what the Supreme Court also doesn't want anybody else to know? What is going on?
I agree with you that this leaves a lot of question and it's surprising, but I think there is a leak. I wouldn't want to say it on open television right now, but we are trying to get to the bottom of this. I think one of the members is compromised and has shared reports with Mr. Srinivasan. We are trying to figure out who that person is and what he has shared. And we are working day and night in trying to unearth that. And I hope the Supreme Court is able to do it before we do it.
Lalit, my colleague Shivani, who actually was in the court and can give you more up-to-date information, is also joining us. Shivani, over to you. First, give us a sense of what happened. You were talking about Nalini Chidambaram when we lost our link. And then if you have any questions for Lalit.
That's right. I just want to update our viewers about the very, very crucial happenings inside the court hearing, which went on for 2 hours today and has now been adjourned till 2 p.m. tomorrow. Now, the first major point that came out was the special bench actually, making some very damning observations on the conflict of interest. Even though it wasn't brought up by the petitioners, the Supreme Court itself asked the BCCI lawyers that is it all right if a president owns a team in the IPL as well? We cannot distinguish between the IPL and the BCCI, and in fact it's become like a mutual benefit society where members of the BCCI who have interest and stake in cricket also have interest and stake in the IPL itself. And the BCCI lawyers found it very difficult to actually get out of that argument about whether it should be proper for a BCCI president to own a team in the IPL as well. The judges went so far as ahead to say that the interest of the BCCI president is that if cricket is played free and fair, that there should be a level playing field. But as an owner, your interest is that your team wins. So is that not conflicting? The second point was about the BCCI arguing that Srinivasan has nothing to do with this entire case anymore. He hasn't been indicted. Both Kapil Sibal and Sundaram made that argument, but the court said very clearly that you are assuming that the BCCI is in the clear, you're assuming that Srinivasan is in the clear, but that is still not the view that the court has. Interestingly, it said that regardless of what the Mudgal report says, it will be admissible as a prima facie complaint, but the court can take a very independent view or inferences, as it said, from what the report itself contains. The BCCI kept arguing that there is an internal process that the board has about the way that it acts on whatever remedy that is required. Let me go across to Lalit on this one. The board suggesting that its own working committee can actually take whatever has been found in this report and take action on it. The Supreme Court actually raising a question on that. That in itself is quite landmark, because the Supreme Court has raised its eyebrow, has raised a suspicion that how can BCCI internally take a look at what has happened in the IPL and in the Mudgal saga, Lalit.
I agree. I think what is important is that the Supreme Court has rightfully done so, because the Supreme Court has observed that every time they have passed some observation, the BCCI has turned it around on its face and basically scraped it under the carpet and come out with their own version and stood behind the guilty. And as you rightly said, the case has just begun, but the BCCI is more concerned about reinstating Mr. N. Srinivasan as president rather than worry about the damage that has been caused to the fans and to the game as a whole, and trying to find a solution. Every solution they find is about resurrecting Mr. Srinivasan and burying everybody that has been coming up in the report as saying they're clean.
That's right. I'll take a very quick comment from Aditya. Verma, the petitioner in this case, who's with me. The hearing today, are you satisfied with the comments that has been made by the special judge? They actually raised a conflict of interest themselves, and even you didn't have to raise that. And whatever they said about the conflict of interest, what is your view on that?
देखिए, मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के माननीय दोनों जज लोग इस बात को अच्छी तरीका से समझ चुके हैं कि एक आदमी के इंटरेस्ट के लिए बीसीसीआई अभी तक जो भी हरकतें कर रहा है सिर्फ एक आदमी के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट के लिए, वो है मिस्टर एन श्रीनिवासन। और आज के बहस में ये बातें सामने आ चुकी, जब जज ने बड़ी ही स्ट्रांग रिमार्क्स किया कि ये कैसे संभव है कि एक आदमी बीसीसीआई का प्रेसिडेंट भी हो, इंडिया सीमेंट का मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर भी हो और सीएसके का टीम ऑनर भी हो। तो ये सब सारे चीज़ों से कोर्ट बहुत ही असंतुष्ट दिखा, और हम तमाम बहस होने के पश्चात कोर्ट इस नतीजे पर पहुंचा कि कल 2 बजे तक के लिए इस मुकदमे की सुनवाई एडजॉर्न की जा रही है। लेकिन मैं इतना आपको बता दे रहा हूं कि आज बीसीसीआई चाहे लाख कोशिश कर ले, लेकिन हमें पूरी उम्मीद है कि हिंदुस्तान के सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में कानून की जीत होगी।
All right, Preeti, it's back to you in the studio for the meantime.
All right, appreciate it, Shivani. They're reporting right outside the Supreme Court. We're getting you the latest coming in. We have Lalit Modi, the former IPL commissioner, on the phone line with us. We have our consulting editor, Borea Mazumdar, joining us, and Shivani reporting right outside the Supreme Court. The big news now, the hearing has got adjourned only to resume tomorrow 2 p.m. Continuous coverage right here.